If you're looking for the experience of a delicious cocktail, but without the effects of alcohol, try Kensho Cocktails by Reserve. These ready-to-drink beverages are made with premium botanicals and natural citruses and spices, giving them the flavor and finish of high-end mixology. Garnish with limes, cherries, or raspberries to complete a bold and sophisticated cocktail, all without the accompanying hangover. Go to rsrvcollective.com and use promo code Cinemavino, and you'll receive 30% off everything on that purchase. It's the biggest discount you can get, and it's exclusive to our promo code. Once again, that's rsrvcollective.com, promo code Cinemavino. And welcome back to Cinemavino. It's good to have you guys here with us. Welcome back. We're doing our second trilogy entry. This is going to be the original 4, 5, and 6 episodes of Star Wars.
You mean the original 1, 2, 3 episodes?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit confusing because the first one's released, but the second chapter of trilogy, the second set of movies chronologically. So put it that way.
Well, in universe chronologically.
Yeah.
First real world chronologically.
The first trilogy in release order.
Anyway,
Yes.
So Taylor's back.
He's
Hey.
got Taylor on.
His nipples have healed. He can wear shirts again.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yes.
I can't believe you ran that many miles.
You know what? when you get to a certain number, you don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just floating.
Once the nipples are gone, I mean, it's just cruising at that point.
Yeah. And eventually, after so many miles, Band-Aids aren't going to do it anymore.
No, you just got to let them go.
Yeah.
Do you regret running in wool, or do you just think that was like a good choice?
It was a temperature decision. It was like, and honestly, I like wool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really comfy. Breathes out.
It agrees with the skin.
It
really
does. Yeah. No, very absorbent,
It is.
No. The cowboy boots kind of sucked. It was like, I will admit. It was like,
I like them.
You
The spurs were a little much.
You looked great running. I'm just saying.
felt good.
Yeah. Good form.
Yeah.
For a man wearing that many feathers, it was good form.
Yeah. I thought they would actually help me go faster.
Yeah.
Fly,
cut
if
the
you will.
wind a bit.
Yeah. But, the spurs did kind of weigh me down a little bit.
So we got Sean Jordan,
Hey,
It burns the hell out of me.
Travis Budd,
Hi.
Todd Wofford. And we are drinking a Raptor Ridge Pinot Gris from Willamette Valley, Oregon. So
Raptor.
for A New Hope, Chapter 4, I thought, it is a very bright, sunny, a lot of warm weather stuff going on in this movie. So I tried to get a wine that would go well with warmer temperatures. So this is a Tatooine-friendly wine.
2 sons.
Yeah, this is extra hot weather.
13%.
Yeah. And so this, to me, I get a lot of fruit on this. I don't know about you guys, but this has
Got to taste it.
kind of a bright pear fruit flavors.
Very Perry.
Yeah. But yeah, for those who don't know, Pinot Gris is going to be a very refreshing, kind of light to medium bodied white wine. Pretty easy drinking, good in hot weather, high acidity. And you tend to get a lot of fruit on those. You can get different things like the number one thing I've always gotten on Pinot Gris is grapefruit, but you can get everything from lime to green apples, pears, all kinds of stuff.
Puckers your mouth a bit.
A bit, yeah. They can be floral, grassy, and they can be different levels of dryness. The wines from Alsace will be on the dry side. They'll have kind of some chalky flavor to them. This one's very bright and fruity and easy drinking to me. So, and it has a little bit of that kind of, I don't want to say rubbery flavor to it, but mineral.
Yeah. It's kind of that like oily kind of petroleum.
Oily, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I get some of that.
Yeah.
Which I've noticed on a lot of the German stuff that we've had too.
Yeah. Which
So.
I always go back to. It smells like fishing lures.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the fresh smell of fishing lures at like Bass Pro Shop.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
There's our shelf talker.
Fishing lure.
But it's about a $20 wine. And yeah, I mean, you see these consumed a lot at in summertime, but you also see these are popular at weddings. Pinot Gris are popular at weddings just because they drink easy. They tend to be crowd pleasing wines.
It goes well with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they're food friendly. Ironically, a lot of people will go for Chardonnay as crowd pleasing wines, but Chardonnay is not necessarily a wine for all tastes.
I can see pairing this with like YMCA dancing at a wedding.
Exactly.
Less so
is
Cupid
that-
Shuffle.
Shout.
The widest dance you can think of, or is there another one?
That's the only one I can do.
Yeah.
Because you get to stay in place.
Yeah.
It's all above the waist.
What's the like country-ish line dance?
Wobble?
No.
Boot, scoot, and boogie.
Yeah. The
Boots, Good and Boogie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like there's another one.
There's got to be some more. But yeah, the Tush Push.
Oh,
that sounds like I watched that on Cinemax one time. That was
it took the guy
that was
45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a good long while. So this wine will cost you about $25, give or take.
Tastes like 18.
Yeah, there you go. Only made 1,700 cases of this. In our region, Oklahoma, Raptor Ridge has always had a pretty good relationship with this market. They get a lot of stuff here. So in this area, you'll find a lot of Raptor Ridge.
Willamette
Valley. Very beautiful. So Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, originally released without the episode number. This was just Star Wars when it came out. Retroactively, after Empire Strikes Back, they added Episode 4.
Episode 1.
Yeah. I mean, like, after Empire Strikes Back, he went back. That had the Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back.
I thought when it originally released in 1977, it was just Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Empire Strikes Back came out. They called that Episode 1. It was Episode 2. They actually called it 4?
So when Empire Strikes Back came out, he labeled it Episode 5.
I thought it wasn't until the prequel trilogy came out that they relabeled it 4, 5, 6.
So he's gone back even before he did like the 90s like rehash and retroactively changed stuff.
Yeah. So then on re-releases, when it came back out, it was re-released to theaters, and when it was sold to the TV market, they added Episode 4, A New Hope, after Empire Strikes Back. So I remember like in the late 80s when I first saw this movie.
Confusing is that?
Yeah. When I first saw it, it was A New Hope, Star Wars. The very first version, I can remember going all the way deep in my memory, seeing a version of this that just said Star Wars and just had the opening crawl. But
that makes sense, because I don't think I ever knew it as A New Hope until like the 90s. I'm like, the first one has a different name.
And definitely when it came out in the late 90s, got released.
Yeah, the VHS remastered.
It was Episode 4. So, So yeah, he had always envisioned this as, because, it ties back to serial matinees that came out in the 1930s of like, you go and see an hour of it, and then you come back the next week and see the next hour of it, and the Flash Gordon, the Shadow, the Phantom, that kind of stuff. It's like you see an hour of it, then you pay your $1, and the next week come back and see it. He'd envisioned this like audiences are coming in midway through the story, like they missed the previous chapters. Now you're coming in midway through, so that's why it's like we'll start with a big space battle, and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I like that you jump right into the action. Yeah, and you've got to like hurry up and like fill in the piece.
You get the crawl, and then it's just pew 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 pew.
And for like my 8-year-old self, it was perfect. That's like the perfect way to hook me into a movie.
Same.
But yeah, this is a landmark movie in both pop culture and cinema in general. None of the other trilogies we're watching would exist without it. There'd be no Lord of the Rings. There'd be no Indiana Jones. There'd be no Batman. There'd be no superhero movies without this. This was a dividing line in movies of before and after. Like for example, they greenlit Christopher Reeve's Superman after the release of this movie. After it came out and made so much money, they greenlit the 78 Superman. So this grossed just over $400 million on its original release against an $11 million budget. That surpassed Jaws to become the most successful movie ever made at that point in time. So it was the #1 grossing movie. In re-releases, it has grossed up, that number goes up to $775 million. So it has spawned 2 direct sequels, a trilogy of prequels, a trilogy of sequels, multiple TV shows, comic books, video games, novels, amusement park rides. It's been spoofed. It's been paid homage to. It's been ripped off.
And ultimately sold to Disney for how many billions?
4
billion?
4.4.
Yeah, it was like,
It's a hefty IP sale.
It is. This won 6 Academy Awards. They were all behind the scenes awards. Best score for John Williams, best sound for Ben Burtt. Ben Burtt actually won 2 different Academy Awards. And this definitely is, this definitely draws out the visual effects people and gives them their due. Ben Burtt was a guy who did sound effects, and he invented the sound of the, laser blasters, lightsabers, Wookiees, droids, R2-D2, everything. I mean, it was like the spaceships, Star Destroyers. He came up with all that stuff. He invented that for this movie. So for that, he was given a special, like his own Academy Award for that. So with all that said, It would be impossible, I think, to summarize the impact of this movie on movies in one episode of anything. You could do an entire podcast of just this movie's impact and like what it's done and what it's meant, all that kind of stuff. So, with that in mind, I would ask, like, Travis, what did you think when did you first see this movie?
I don't know, because growing up, I think my dad had recorded Empire and Return of the Jedi off of like HBO at some point. So we only ever had those two films. And I'm sure I had seen this one other time at like a friend's house or on TV or something, but I didn't remember it for years until like the 90s ones were coming out. And then I saw that and I was like, man, I don't remember a lot of this stuff. So I got to say, it's probably when they did the redo of a lot of them that I really remember it. And I remember thinking that the CGI at the time was cool because it was all like Jurassic Park had come out and they were changing some stuff. But I also thought it was weird just seeing, like, I liked the CGI that I saw at first until I saw fucking Jabba like scooting around with his little slug dick. And I was like, this is not, it just looks weird.
Yeah.
Because I know what Jabba's supposed to look like. And you never got to see him until the second movie, until Empire. So I did not like that part. It wasn't until later that I knew about the whole Greedo shooting first. And these fucking soft ass kids are like, no, we have to have Greedo shoot first. Because I watched it this time. You can't even see Greedo actually getting shot with the black, like it. Anyway, that's fucking stupid. But yeah, I know I probably saw it before, but the other two movies are ingrained in my head so much because I would watch those over and over. So this is ironically the one of the three that I've seen the least number of times.
Yeah.
Having said that, rewatching it, I thought it was really interesting how there was long stretches where it's just, there's no dialogue. There's just R2-D2 just beeping along. And every once in a while, C-3PO is talking, but then they separate and then it's just long stretches of just him. And it still worked.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, okay. There are people that know what these beeps and clicks mean. So he's saying something. And then the rest of the time, you just have to infer what you think he's talking about or meaning whenever the Jawas are like tracking him down.
And it's interesting because it's like they screened a rough draft of this movie in like 76 and it was a disaster. George screened it for his director buddies and everybody, and it was a total disaster. And so it took 3 editors to put together the final print of this movie, one of which was George Lucas's later ex-wife, Marsha Lucas.
Didn't Spielberg put a lot of notes into it?
He gave, I think Spielberg really enjoyed it that first. He could see the potential of it in that first screening of it. But even George, like this nearly broke George Lucas making this movie. This really broke his spirit. There's a reason why he didn't direct the next 2 movies, because he nearly had a nervous breakdown making this one.
Well, I loved all the miniatures that they show in this, especially once they show the behind the scenes stuff, because ever since, nothing else has looked quite as good. There's something about seeing the Star Destroyers when they're thrown on the screen, and they do the same thing with the Enterprise. I know, at least in Next Generation, where they're using the miniatures and then just the CGI cannot capture light hitting the actual like miniature as well as it can. The miniatures work better than the CGI is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
CGI, I think, is great to enhance like miniatures and stuff. But moving on from like Lord of the Rings and the bigatures, that's all. I got a big old floppy dong for miniatures and bigatures. They're just so well done.
Don't you mean a rock hard dong?
Rock hard dong. Yeah. Sorry. I got my penises mixed up.
For listeners at home, off camera, off speakers, we pretty much devised that Travis kind of internally ranks movies based on the reaction of his penis.
The turgidness.
Yes, the turgidness of his member.
Where you
not
are on
mine,
the scale
just like
from 6 to mid.
In general, yeah.
The my internal.
Yeah.
Just
instead of
your Heart's boner.
yes.
Yeah. That's a band's name.
Heart's boner.
Yeah.
That is 80s hair metal.
Yeah. So overall, like if I'm giving this out of 10, like I got to go at least like a 9 on this, just because it's positioned in the cultural zeitgeist. Introduction of Vader just being a fucking Billy badass, like one of the coolest villains, or the coolest villain in cinema history, and the fact that they wrap it up and they have essentially a top to bottom, like a finished film. Like they wrap it up at the end. Like there's room for growth, but they weren't sure they were ever going to get a second film. So
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. So you
music on point. John Williams fucks.
And John Williams does fuck.
It's awesome. This I think is John Williams' finest hour. These 3 movies we're covering, and he's all about motifs. He's all about different character motifs. And so every one of these movies, he introduces a new motifs for each character. So in this one, you hear one from Princess Leia. She's all flute. And then
some French horn.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, her main theme is like a little fanfare on the flute. Then there's a fanfare for the Empire, which is different than the one he does for the next movie, Empire Strikes Back. The Empire gets a different flourish of brass. And then there's
Tatooine has its own fanfare, which is heavy French horn.
Yeah.
John Williams loves French horn, and he uses it really well.
And then Luke Skywalker, his theme is introduced in this one as the Rebel fanfare. That's what it's called. It's like it's the theme of the Rebels. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi's character theme is the theme of the Force. So they're tied together. So,
and you've got all the tropes in here, the scoundrel, like the young hero. This is a fucking Joseph Campbell wet dream. That's what this is. Mm-hmm. Some point.
And the final dogfight at the end is heavily influenced by a World War II movie called The Dam Busters. If you ever want to go back and compare and contrast, George Lucas was heavily inspired by the movie The Dam Busters.
There's a porn with that same name too. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It's a small world. So Tay, what about you?
I don't remember either. I remember watching this as a kid with a friend, like might have been like 5th or 6th grade. No, I didn't care for it. I was like, meh, whatever. It was like, I think we were playing and it was just on. I was like, all right, whatever. I don't give a shit. And then I don't think I watched it again until the re-release. And I remember going to it with another group of friends, and they were so gung-ho about it because of all the changes, but I didn't know shit. Like, I didn't know.
I think we went, because I think they came out in, like 97.
It was like 97. I remember like going with some people that I don't remember who it was, but they were so gung-ho, and I'm like, bitch, I don't even know what the fuck this movie is. And I remember watching it in the theater, but it was like, and they were talking about the slug thing and how they changed the bar. I was just like, yeah, I have no fucking clue what you guys are talking about. And I was like, but it was a cool movie. I was like, all right, this is kind of sweet. And then I watched Empire, and I think I just kind of took a lull, and then I started like rewatching it. And I think every single time it has just grown on me. Like every single time. It's just gotten better and better. And then like when you kind of get a little bit more into it, you just, especially like you start liking films and watching films, you just have like such a growing appreciation. Like I'm just writing out the bat. I give it a 10, but when I first saw it, it was a 5. Yeah. I was like, fuck this shit. I was like, what are they in a pile of trash? And the walls are closing in on them. I was like, this is freaking stupid. And I was like, y'all are idiots. And then it was like, it just kept getting better and better. I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this movie doesn't suck too bad. And then you watch it again and you're like, oh, fuck. Like, this is like impressive. And like every time you watch it, you just have a bit more and more appreciation for it. And it's just like, to me, it's Star Wars, especially this one, because Empire just fucking slaps. It was like, this one is like I love The Simpsons. And this is like Simpsons episodes that I've seen 4 billion times. It's the little things I pick up on. It's like a Homer's face, or just like a grin, or a picture in the background, or a sign. All their signs are so different. And like, it's like I'm finding something new for something that I've watched 400 million times. That's this one. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, you just watch it and you're like, damn, man, they did a really, like these long silent scenes. I kind of noticed that too. I was like, man, kind of forget, like, it's just kind of sand in the wind,
actually taking their time.
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck?
Just vibing.
Yeah, and it was like, and I think I said it before, maybe in one of our, like, when we kind of reviewed the third part of the 7, 8, 9
sequel trilogy.
I freaking love like the wipes. the editing. I think it is like, because for some reason, like, you know, you have all these cuts in every film, but this one, like, it was almost like it's like you're turning the page. Yeah. Like you're moving over. You're going somewhere new. And I don't know. I always thought that was the coolest fucking thing. And still to this day, every time I see it, I'm like, man, like, it always makes me wonder, like, was it just a cheap way to do it? Or it was like, but it is to me, the fucking just wipe to a new scene. I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool.
I forgot they did the bottom up wipe whenever they picking up this broken C-3PO.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I forgot that they do
every wipe. I think is so fucking cool. I don't even know why.
And if you go back and watch like Casablanca and stuff like that, you'll see those wipes in class, like classic Maltese Falcon, like the 40s movies.
Yeah.
Those are big.
It reminds me of like a paintbrush, like a swipe. It does remind me of the comic books too, but it reminds me of fucking Bob Ross in the very beginning of his credits is that he's got the sign on there, but like it doesn't show up until he rolls the paint roller over it and then the title of the show. No. So it reminds me of that and the comic book swipes, which Ang Lee tried to do with Hulk. Yeah. And it was
he did like the comic
done
book
better.
Like, transition.
Yeah, but the wipe I feel like works better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's every time it's just like I watch it, it's like more, and I don't even know if it's something I pick up something new, but it's like just a more appreciation of the film. Like you said, it's been all this stuff, you know, and like especially for what they thought. Like when I was watching it today, I was just thinking like, man, everyone who worked on it, like, you know, they put their fucking sweat, blood, and tears. It's kind of like, you know, you could say this for like Microsoft too, but like I think of like Steve Jobs, because I've seen those shitty movies too. But it was like where he's the Steve Jobs bio. It's like, yeah, it's like, where they're just a knit group of people who are making something that they like really believe in, but they have no kind of fucking clue what's going on.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know how this is going to turn out. Like, we're just going to make this. And they put so much effort into it. And I'm like, damn, man, you fools just like committed yourselves to this. And then on top of all that, like, I think I read, again, can't believe everything, but like, did he get this sign like where he would get a lot of merchandising rights?
He did.
Because this, I thought I'd read that like this was like the first time that like people made money off of a movie for merchandising. Like that started the whole trend.
Merchandising.
Well, yeah, in his negotiations with 20th Century Fox, he actually kind of like maneuvered his way to take less of an upfront paycheck in exchange for 100% of the merchandising.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Christ.
And because like there was no market for it before that, they're like, we're going to sell lunch boxes. This
exactly.
There's no way. So they gave him all of it.
Yeah.
That's why he became a billionaire.
Yeah.
That's why he bankrolled a lot of Empire Strikes Back out of his own pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was so cool. It's just like, because it came out in the summer and it was like, and then it just hit for that holiday season and just like exploded. And I was like, God damn. Like, again, it's like, man, I don't even know what's, because then I saw another something that he, after it was released, he didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I did see that he was like stressed the fuck out. And then he went on vacation with, Spielberg, and they wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it was like during that, I'm like, what is happening? It was like this guy just who knew at the time, but it creates this massive film that spawns, a film generation. And then he goes and he's like, but let's also write Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Cocaine was a great thing.
It must have been.
It did some great things for America.
I used to have the Rancor toy because another person I went to like elementary school with left it out in his like turtle sandbox, didn't want anymore. I'm like, you don't want this? It's fucking dope.
What's down?
And I took it
fucking
home,
Rancor?
and I had the fucking Rancor. I was like, this thing is awesome. My mom hated it. She was like, this is ugly. Why do you want this? And she would hound me to like throw it away. And I think I finally let her someday. So I don't think, I'm like, that thing would be like $400, $600 today. Even if it had sat out in this fucking, in the weather of this dude's little turtle, sand pit.
Yeah.
Like I could have cleaned that up and fuck. I don't know. I'm pissed. You guys talk about yourself. I want to see how much.
Look up the value of this.
I hope, The long story short, it's a 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's not, it was never a 10 to me to begin with. Again, it was like a 5. I was like, fuck this. And again, I still will say this. I don't think I've ever seen the original. Because I remember when Disney Plus first came out, I had gotten sick like that November. And so I was like, oh, this is great. That was the first thing I watched was Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I asked Travis, I was like, it was Return of the Jedi, which we'll get to, but I was like,
it's only $90. Never mind.
Did they just change the ending? Like, did they just change this? And Travis was like, yeah, man, it fucking sucks. Like, you can't find the originals. I was like, hold on. So Lucas just said, fuck you, and just redid all of these, and that's all you can get now? And he's like, yeah, pretty much.
That's right. You can't see the Academy Award winning version of the film.
Yeah.
Because they had him on, I think, Tubi or something, but you could only access it if you had like a Roku.
Yeah.
If you had the Roku Tubi, they were like, hey, the original Star Wars is up. Because I was going to send it to you guys.
Because I've never seen it. I've never seen the original.
I believe one of the Blu-ray releases had both versions of it you could watch.
Well, and this is kind of how I feel about Bob Dylan. We were talking shit on him earlier. He never plays his songs the way they were recorded because every time he performs them, he changes something.
Yeah.
He's continuously like, okay, well, that's how I heard the song that time, but now I hear it differently, and I'm playing it this way now. And I was like, no, I want to hear you play the song that you wrote that I like. Yeah. Like, I want to watch Star Wars. I want to watch the Star Wars that I saw and I like. I want to see that movie. And George Lucas is like, no. I've made it better. He's a slug man now.
Yeah.
Also, Greedo shoots first. Also, just don't worry about it. It's better now.
And the CGI is so dated now.
Yeah, it aged poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Han's going to like step over you and he's going to do this weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree that a lot of the special effects, even in that 97 version, they stand out like oil and water next to the analog, old schools, the visual effects. One thing we haven't talked about is how this movie, basically George Lucas did not find enough special effects houses and people to do what he needed. And
that's why he built THX.
He started his own company, Industrial Light and Magic, and he recruited a lot of people all the top people to join ILM. And so they gathered and they helped kind of execute these. A lot of those dogfight scenes for the Star Wars thing were filmed out in the parking lot of the 20th Century Fox Studios.
Oh, yeah.
Industrial Light and Magic went on to become Pixar, didn't it?
I think there was an offshoot of that. Yeah, it was an offshoot of that. But yeah, he founded that, and they became the premier special effects people from Hollywood. I mean, it's like they did a lot of stuff for like Marvel and superhero movies and Star Trek and Back to the Future and everything. They became the special effects house.
They did E.T., didn't they?
Yeah, they did
a lot of Spielberg stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Sean, what did you think?
All right. Well,
keep it short.
I'm going to do this again because I can't not. I was 7, I think, when the re-releases came out. And that was kind of my introduction to it. I think my first memory of it was when the re-released VHSs were on sale. It was like a 3-pack. It was like black with like a gold, like triangle sort of like VHS cover. Do you remember this one?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It had like Vader's face. Yeah. That was my first, I didn't get a chance to see the original before he remastered it the first time.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my introduction to it. But they also, with that, they did a big push of toys and like merchandising and everything like that. So, I mean, my generation was hit heavy with like Star Wars influence.
Yeah.
I had this toy that was like, it was a Millennium Falcon that had a grid of buttons. It was like a 4x4 grid, and you had to basically match the sounds, real dumb. I was like 7. It was fun. But those sounds were like clips from the movies that it was like, Nerf herder, or like, let the Wookiee win. It just shit like that. Those sounds were so ingrained in my brain that I was watching these movies and I activated like a sleeper agent. Every time it happened, I was just like, whoa, oh, yeah. This was on my Millennium Falcon. It was hugely effective. I mean, it was a whole new generation that was brought into the Star Wars fold, because before then, I think my parents probably had it like recorded, like you said, like a recording of an HBO something, or it was like a VHS recording of some TV play. I don't know. So this was great. It brought me into the fold. It prepped me for 2001 when Phantom Menace came out, or 99 when Phantom Menace came out. I was a huge Darth Maul fan, and I didn't understand the outrage.
Of course.
Because I was 9.
Yeah.
And I had just been indoctrinated into the whole like Star Wars thing. I was at that age where you would watch a movie, record it, and watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 lightsabers is better than 1. It's scientific.
It was the coolest thing in the world, because before then, lightsabers looked cheesy as hell. Like, and I think at the time, at that age, Jedi was my favorite movie because it was cool. The effects were cool. Not the Ewoks. Fuck Ewoks. It was like the lightsabers were the coolest in Jedi. He had the green lightsaber, which is cool and different. He had the most powers, which, like, as a 7-year-old, like, that's badass.
Yeah.
Robot hand.
Yeah. And I think now I've watched this movie so many times. I've watched the trilogy so many times. You have a different appreciation of it now, but you can't not watch it with the perspective of that kid watching it,
No.
as a 7-year-old on the VHSs.
No.
And, you know, now I get the outrage. I get, like, going back and watching a lot of the remasters that they did and seeing, like, okay, yeah, Jabba the Hutt looks fucking dumb. Why is he, like, skulking around the Millennium Falcon? But, like, I don't have an appreciation for the plot independently of it being Star Wars, because I've seen it at an age where it's just Star Wars.
Right.
And it's so hard to peel out the influence of the machine of Star Wars from, like, watching this movie. It's a whole thing. Like, every single second of this movie has been analyzed and talked about, and, like, nerds have obsessed over this movie for the last 50 years almost.
And here we are.
And here we are. Like, people, there was no way in hell you can tell me that George Lucas was making this movie and it was like, people are going to care about Porkins. Like, no. Rest in peace, Porkins. But, like, nobody cared. That stuff was filler. It was just nonsense stuff that was going on. And he just, like, was throwing shit at the wall that has somehow become a cultural milestone of, like, oh yeah, did you see my Porkins figurine?
Yeah.
It's accurate to the scene.
Trav, did you recognize that actor playing Porkins in?
From Batman '89
And from
Eckhart.
Raiders of the
Thinking
Lost
about
Ark
the
too.
future.
Yeah,
Like, how is it? How are gonk droids like a meme?
yeah. And as soon as you say that, I hear that sound in my head.
Gonk gonk.
Actually, there were some other, like, deleted scenes with Luke and his buddies, right, on Tatooine.
Mhm.
And I've seen them and I'm like, why isn't that in the fucking movie? If you're going to reformat the whole thing, like, why don't you put in the shit that actually shows?
Zeroing womp rats?
Yeah.
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 I need to see that.
I mean,
Instead of CGI slug trails.
Yeah.
Snail trails.
CGI small trails. That's a band name.
Mm-hmm. So what would you give this?
I got to give this movie an 8 with, I mean, you got to look at the movie itself. There are pieces of it that kind of suck. Like, there are definitely, like, it's a little bit lower budget. Like, they were kind of doing stuff on the fly and seeing what would stick. And honestly, the remasteries kind of take away from some of the, like, the charm of it, but there's so much that's, it's impossible to rate this movie, like, independently.
Like a regular movie.
I can't rate it like a regular movie. I can relate it to the other two, in which case I would give this an 8, and then we'll get to the other two. And
See, I had to give this a 9 so I can get Empire.
you got to give Empire 10.
Yeah.
Obviously, you gotta
That's
give
the only
Empire 10.
reason I had to dank this one.
Yeah. But I don't think it's a 9. I don't think it's a 9 because I think there are a lot of flaws. That the plot's real straightforward and kind of flimsy, and but it's Star Wars. I can't, I can't be objective about it. Yeah. Because it's been ingrained into my childhood. I've seen this movie a million times and I've obsessed over it. So
that's kind of where I am with it. It's like, I can't, I was exactly where you were, 7, 8 years old, first time I saw it, and the same deal. It's like, I can't separate that person out, the kid that watched this from the watching it now. So I don't even know how you factor rewatchability into it. I don't know how you can, I see it now and I imagine myself as a kid. I'm trying to time the perfect time to show it to my oldest son, and then
I'd say 6, 7 is like the peak age.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Yeah.
But he even enjoys the little Jedi cartoons on Disney Plus. He's already, like, into lightsabers and spaceships and stuff like that.
This is the thing, like, lightsabers are ubiquitous now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas then it's just like, oh, cool. He has like a sword that's like,
Laser sword.
Yeah.
Laser sword.
But yeah, I this is one of the movies that I'm exactly like you. I first saw Empire Strikes Back and Jedi. We had a family friend who he was a shut-in and he recorded his things on HBO, recorded movies all day. He had his VCR. He had two VCRs in his living room, and he programmed them to record movies all day on HBO.
Hell yeah.
And so me and my dad would go over to his house, and he would let me kind of look through his library of VHS tapes that he'd recorded and pick some out.
No, son, don't look at those.
Then there were definitely
that's daddy's cabinet.
Those are home movies.
And he had a catalog. He literally had like a catalog, laminated stuff I could look through and pick out what I wanted. And there were R-rated stuff mixed in there.
What's behind the beaded curtain?
Yeah.
No.
there were some raunchy stuff mixed in there. There was definitely some Porky's 9.5 Weeks type stuff.
That's Uncle sitting on the sprinkler for 45 minutes.
What kind of sprinkler is like that?
Like Billy Madison.
So I first saw Empire Strikes Back. He had Empire Strikes Back and Jedi. He didn't have the original. And so I first saw those two out of his collection. And I eventually copied his VHS. So I copied his HBO thing that he recorded on my own VHS. That's how I kept my own copy.
Old school. Player to player?
Yeah. And yeah, literally two VCRs wired together. And then I went back later and saw episode 4 or whatever. After the fact, I saw those two, and I had to go find episode 4 and rent it at the video store. So, but yeah, and then wore those things out, watched them so many times. But yeah, I don't know. I can't, like I say, there's so many things about the movie that are now, like you say, ubiquitous pop culture. You know, the cinnamon bun hairdo of Princess Leia and the lightsabers and Darth Vader's breathing and the music and, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, and his personality. Everything about it is just, it's hard to separate that out as a regular movie. That's
and
just
Grand Moff.
And Grand Moff Tarkin, yeah.
Bush.
He was supposedly barefoot for a lot of his scenes.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Why?
can tell.
He didn't want to wear shoes.
Just wanted to be grounded, you know?
Yeah.
Really feel the set.
But I mean, the little things like supposedly Alec Guinness was very weary about filming this movie.
I was going to say, tell me about Alec Guinness, because I know he was kind of a shit, right?
So he was you got to keep in mind, he was an Oscar-winning Shakespearean actor who at that point.
Oh, I'm sorry. He was in the best-selling movie of all time.
He was. And then that's looking back now.
He less
Bridge
of a
over the
bitch
River
about
Kwai?
I think he had a very he had a very love-hate relationship with this movie and this character. You know, I mean, he was famous for doing, you know, King Lear and all these Macbeth-style plays.
He reminds me of Patrick Stewart in Next Generation, where he's like, guys, we have to be serious actors. And then they just broke him down. He was like, you know what? I should be having fun with it.
Yeah. And I think he eventually warmed up to the character over time. But you got to keep, like, imagine that, like you're an old.
Can you give me a modern day comp to Alec Guinness?
Man, I mean, you got to think about somebody who is now Harrison Ford, like an old grouch that's like approaching it like kind of with disdain. You know, this decorated, you know, Oscar-winning performer who is like, what is this nonsense dialogue that I'm talking about, you know? And there's these two robots over here who are making beeping sounds.
Yeah.
What am I in? You know, what is this movie?
What? Enjoy your lake house and shut the fuck up.
Yeah. You know, so in his mind, it's like I made Bridge on the River Kwai. I made Great Expectations with David Lean. I made Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia. This is what everybody knows me for. I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
You know, but Leonard Nimoy had the same deal with Spock. His first autobiography is called I'm Not Spock, you know, because he was so tired of people coming up and quoting Star Trek to him. So, but I mean, Alec Guinness obviously warmed up to it after the movie came out. Like you say, he made stacks of money. He came back for the next two movies as a Force ghost, you know, playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
Did he have points or was it just like a flat?
I'm sure he got a cut. He would have had to have. To be involved. He was the only actor of this original trilogy to be nominated for an Academy Award. He was nominated for an Oscar for his performances.
See, Nimoy came back around too because he was in the J.J. Abrams. I think he probably realized, like, hey, all these morsels of food that I'm getting to eat is probably, man, I'm enjoying these paychecks.
Well,
they're delicious.
His Nimoy's second autobiography that he wrote was called I Am Spock.
Yeah.
So he came around.
That's your bippy.
So it's like, you know,
you bet your sweet baby.
It's that love-hate relationship, you know, and I think Guinness made peace with that he was forever to, you know, younger generation was Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And he's a great fit for the character. He's perfect for that kind of gravitas of an old man.
I've always hated to be known as like Baby Dick Bud, but like I've got to embrace it because it's who I am. It's how people know me.
Yep, that's who you are.
They're just like, hey, there's old Baby Dick Bud. And I'm like, well, that's hurtful but accurate.
I knew when I read I'm not Baby Dick Bud that you were one day going to come around.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first chapter's a little bit slow. I mean, I was still zipped up, but later I
Whole hog.
I unloaded myself. So this is a 10 for me. I'd give this. I can't give it anything other than a 10. So
I never even seen the original. I gave it 10.
Yeah,
it's just And again, like you talk about Alec Guinness. It was like it is weird. I've watched it and I've thought of this a few times. But I've watched it. It really is the acting. Sometimes just makes me giggle because it's like they had to be like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah,
but like. I thought it was kind of okay acting in some. I don't know. Luke kind of sucks ass. And it was like a little fucking goody two-shoed son of a bitch. Like I thought he was wearing penny loafers the whole time. But it was like, I don't know. It was like
blue milk?
Yeah. It's like he just seemed like he was I don't know. For some reason he kind of Hamill's acting kind of threw me off sometimes. But I've like the other time I'd be like, people are like putting effort into this. And it was just like, for some, they had fucking no idea what they were like getting their films into.
It was
like
pulpy. Like the first one was pulpy. It was a straight up like 70s pulp sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
That was kind of goofy. And the fact that it all hit at the right time and just like nailed the zeitgeist for some reason.
Well, it had
perfect
puppetry and even claymation where you're watching like the chess pieces run around fighting and stuff. Also, there should be an app where you can play Star Wars chess.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules.
I don't know
against Wookiees.
Yes.
Ooh.
Ooh.
That the Wookiee.
But yeah, I've ever seen Mark Hamill's story talking about when they're in the trash compactor filming that scene. Have you guys seen that?
Oh.
I think it was Conan or somebody, and he was telling a story about like how they're filming that scene and they're in that murky water or whatever in the debris. And he noticed in one scene to the next, like his hair is soaked, and then they come back later and film something, and his hair is dry. And he's like, George, wait a minute. Shouldn't my hair be wet for this? And he said, Harrison Ford leaned over, like, kid, this ain't kind of movie. Kid, this ain't that kind of movie. Nobody's looking at your hair.
Yeah.
And he did a perfect Harrison Ford for that. So
Mark Hamill went on to become one of the best voice actors of a generation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very talented.
Joker?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cockknocker?
Ooh.
That's
And the trickster in the second made-for-TV movie Flash from the early 90s.
Exactly.
So it's been another episode of Cinemavino, and we thank you guys for coming along with us on episode 4, New Hope. Kind of tune in next time. We're going to do Empire Strikes Back, episode 5. So should be some good stuff. Great movies. Holy Drunker. We got Taylor.
Yo.
Travis.
Yo.
Sean.
Bye.
I'm Todd. So y'all keep it real.